Welcome to part 3 of my Blender Rubik's Cube tutorial. In this video we will be animating the Rubik's Cube, so let's begin. I'm going to reduce the level of the subdivision surface modifier first for this cube, so that we do not get any lag when we are animating the cube. Next, I'm going to hide everything except the cube and the table. So I'm going to select the cube and press Ctrl I to select all other things, and then I'm going to hold down Shift and left click the table twice to deselect it, and then I'm going to press H to hide everything. Now I'm going to add an empty cube, and then I'm going to scale this down to about this size, and then I'm going to name this empty cube control, and then I'm going to click on this cube and then hold down Shift and click on this empty and press Ctrl P to set parent, and I'm going to choose the second option. Now if I move this empty, it's going to move the cube. If I do anything to this empty, it will apply to the cube. Now if you click and drag down here, you'll see this timeline. This timeline contains your animation. If you click on this arrow or press spacebar, you will play your animation. But right now we do not have any animation, so nothing happens. So let's go ahead and do something to this cube, for example. Let's move it on the z-axis like this. And let's play. Again, nothing happens. The reason for this is that Blender only records the final location of all our objects. Okay, the final location, let me click on the cube. The final location is the only thing that's recorded in Blender. Okay, so in order to make an animation happen, we need to record the initial and final location. So I'm gonna go to frame 30 here, frame 30, and then I'm gonna click on this cube empty. Let me check something. Okay, I'm gonna click on this empty, and then I'm going to press K and add in a location keyframe. This way I recorded the location of the empty in this particular stage. Now I'm going to go to frame 60, and then I'm going to grab this on the z-axis. I'm going to press G, Z, and then let me type 0.045, and then press K and add another location keyframe. Now we recorded the initial location and the final location, so right now there will be an animation, like so. Now I want you to come over here and go to the output menu and set the frame rate to 30 FPS. Okay, this means that in each second 30 frames will pass. Okay, this is my preferred frame rate, to be honest. Okay, so we animated the first stage of this cube, or we finished the first stage of this animation, and that is the cube hovering up in the air like so. The next stage of our animation is we need to make the camera zoom in on the cube after it hovers up in the air. So let me unhide the camera, and I'm going to go back to frame 1 by holding Shift and pressing the left arrow, and then I'm going to add another empty. This time I'm going to add a sphere empty, and then I'm going to scale this down to about this size, and then I'm going to press 1 on the numpad to go to the front view. Maybe I can scale this a bit more, and then grab this on the z-axis and hold down Control to move it incrementally and accurately, and then I'm going to left click when it's in the middle. And now I'm going to click on the camera, then hold down Shift and click on this empty and press Ctrl P and do the same thing as we did to the cube. Then I'm going to name this empty camera control. Alright, now if I do anything to this empty, it will apply to the camera. I'm going to press 0 on the numpad to go to the camera view, and then I'm going to go to frame 60, and then I'm going to, this time I'm not going to press K, but rather I'm going to press I to add a keyframe for all kinds of transform, including location, rotation, and scale. So I'm going to press I to add a keyframe for all kinds of transform, and then I'm going to move to frame 90, which is around 1 second later, and then I'll position the camera to the position I want it to be before the cube starts solving itself. So I'm going to press GZ 0.045. Make sure that you're selecting camera control and not the camera itself. And then I'm going to double tap R to make a gentle smooth rotation, and I'm going to hold down Shift to make it even smoother until this orange dot is exactly on the corner. I'm going to keep sliding until it's exactly on the corner, and then I'm going to left click. I'm going to left click like this, and then I'm going to scale down until the cube is about until it's about right there. And then I'm going to left click and then I'm going to press I again to add a keyframe. I'm going to hold down Shift and press left arrow to go back to frame 1, and then let's play our animation. Perfect, this is exactly what we want, so I'm going to hold down Shift and press left arrow to go back to frame 1. Now we're going to click on the cube and then press Ctrl I to select everything else and then hide everything else, because now we're going to start animating the cube itself. So the last frame we used in our camera was frame 90. We could start animating from this frame, but I prefer to skip 10 frames first to give the cube some time before it starts moving, before the layer starts solving the cube. Okay, because if I start from frame 90, then this means that as soon as the camera zooms in, the cube will start solving itself, and that's not very cool. I like to leave a little gap here, so I'm going to start in frame 100. I'm going to start animating the cube to make it solve itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the cube, then press N to open the properties panel, and then change the rotation mode to quaternion. Then I'm going to close the properties panel, and then I'm going to press tab to go to the edit mode and make sure that everything is selected. And then I'm going to press P and separate by loose parts. Now each of these cubelets is a separate object and can be selected separately. This will allow us to select a whole layer, for example, and then animate or rotate this layer as we want. So for example, we can select this layer and rotate it on the Z-axis like so. All right, I press right click to cancel any rotation, and let's go to the material preview so that we can start looking at the colors. I'm going to wait for the computer to load this up. All right, so the computer has loaded this up, and we have the cube, and we can look at the colors. I'm going to press Ctrl S to save my project. And then I'm going to press 1 on the numpad to go to the front view. We will make this front view our reference position whenever we're rotating the layers, okay? So let's first get a random scramble to scramble the cube and then make it solve itself. So I'm going to go to this website over here to get a random scramble for the cube. The link will be in the description. So I'm going to click here and then set the scrambles to 1, make sure it's a 3x3, and then I'm going to set the length to 10. This is a good length. We don't need a length higher than this. And we have a random scramble over here. So before we start rotating the layers, I want to make sure to click here and change the pivot point back to median point, because in the last video we changed it to 3D cursor, so it's time we return it back to median point. This is very important. Okay. Over here, you can see this one says D2. It means rotate the down layer twice. You know, each turn on this cube is 90 degrees, so turning it twice means turning it by 180 degrees. Again, make sure to go to your reference position. In our case, it will be 1. You can choose whatever reference position you want, but make sure to keep it fixed. Do not change it throughout the animation. So make your decision now and then stick to it. In my case, it's going to be numpad 1, where there is a yellow center on top and a blue center in front. So I'm going to select the down layer. Make sure to enable your X-ray, and then click and drag to select the down layer and rotate it by 180 degrees. But before doing that, make sure to add a rotation keyframe first. So press K and then add a rotation keyframe on frame 100. And then we can enable the auto keying to save time. This will add an automatic keyframe for any kind of rotation or movement we do to any object, essentially. So I'm going to enable this. And then after putting a keyframe for rotation here, I'm going to move by 40 frames, and then I'm going to rotate on the Z-axis by 180 degrees. As you can see, a keyframe is being placed. After doing this, I'm going to skip 10 frames and go to the next move. This one says R2, so I'm going to press 1 on the numpad to go to the reference position, and then I'm going to click and drag to select the right layer, and then I'm going to add a rotation keyframe first, and then I'm going to skip by 40 frames to go to frame 190, and then I'm going to rotate this layer on the x-axis by 180 degrees. Once again, I'm going to skip 10 frames and go to the next move. The next move says L, which means the left face should be rotated 90 degrees clockwise. Again, I'm going to go to the reference position, click and drag to select the left layer, and we're going to add a rotation keyframe first. After adding a rotation keyframe, this time I'm going to skip only 20 frames since we're turning this layer only once, 90 degrees, not 180 degrees, so the time this should take is only half the time the other should take. So I'll only move by 20 frames, and then I'm going to rotate this on the x-axis by 90 degrees clockwise, like this. Like this. And then I'm going to left click, okay? By the way, clockwise will not necessarily result in a positive 90-degree turn in Blender. It depends on your position. In some cases, the clockwise turn will be negative 90, so do not memorize these numbers. Just look at the cube and hold down Control while rotating so that the rotation is exact, okay? Now I'm going to skip 10 frames and do the same thing again. We're going to go to the next one, which is U, which means the up face 90 degrees clockwise. So I'm going to go to the reference position, click and drag, and then I'm going to add a rotation keyframe. Let me first increase this thing let me set it to 600, the end frame, so that we have more space to work with. And now, since this is also a 90-degree turn, I'm going to move by 20 keyframes. Sorry, I'll move by 20 frames to frame 250, and then I'm going to make my rotation. I'll press R, Z, and hold down Control and rotate this 90 degrees clockwise. As you can see, in this case, it's a negative 90-degree turn. Oops, I'm sorry, I made it wrong, so I'm going to do this again. Excuse me, I don't know why this thing is just annoying. Okay, so we're going to just, place it over here. As you can see, in this case, it's a negative 90-degree turn, even though it's clockwise. That's why I'm telling you, do not memorize the numbers. Okay, now I'm going to skip 10 frames to frame 260, and then I'm going to go to the next one, which is L2. L2 means the left face should be turned by 180 degrees. So I'm going to select this, make a rotation keyframe, and this time I'm going to skip by 40 frames since this is a double turn. I'm going to go to frame 300 and press R, X, 180. In the case of 180, this is the only time you can memorize the number because it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative, it's going to result in the same thing, okay? Now I'm going to skip 10 frames and go to the next move. We have D2 again. So again, I'm going to go to the reference position, click and drag, undo. I pressed L accidentally, okay. So I'm going to click and drag here to select the down face. Make sure you're in the reference position. Okay, rotation keyframe. And then, since this is a D2, I'm going to move by 40 frames. I'm going to go to frame 350. And then I'm going to press R, Z, 180. And I'm going to skip 10 frames and do the same thing again. This one says B apostrophe. This means rotate the back face by 90 degrees anti-clockwise. Okay, so I'm going to press 7 to go to the top view. And then I'm going to select the back layer here. And then I'm going to just click and drag the middle mouse button to look at this back layer. And then I'm going to add a rotation keyframe. And then I'm going to skip by 20 frames to frame 380. And then I'm going to rotate this on the y-axis by 90 degrees anti-clockwise. As you can see, in this case, even though it's anti-clockwise, it's positive 90 degrees. Okay, let's click here to go to frame 390. And we have F apostrophe, which means front face 90 degrees anti-clockwise. I'm going to go to the reference position by pressing 1 on the numpad, and then I'm going to look up here, press 7 to go to the top view, and then I'm going to click and drag to select the front face, and then I'm going to add a rotation keyframe, and then I'm going to skip by 20 frames, like this. I'm going to go to this frame, and then I'm going to rotate the front face by 90 degrees anti-clockwise. Again, it's negative 90 in this case. Okay, so let's left click. Again, forget about this number, just look at the cube in order not to confuse yourself. So now I'm going to skip 10 frames, and I'm going to go to frame 420. And I'm going to go for the next move, which is R, which means the right side 90 degrees clockwise. So I'm going to go to the reference position, click and drag to select the right face, and then I'm going to add a rotation keyframe, and then I'm going to skip. This is a single turn, right? Yes, it's a single clockwise 90-degree turn. So I'm going to move by 20 frames only, and then I'm going to rotate this on the x-axis by 90 degrees clockwise. And as you can see, it's negative 90 even though it's clockwise. Okay, and then I'm gonna just click here to skip 10 frames. And then we're gonna make the final turn, which is this U. So once again, I'm gonna go to the reference position, click and drag to select the top layer, and then I'm gonna add a rotation keyframe, and then I'm going to move by 20 frames to frame 470, and then I'm going to rotate this on the z-axis by 90 degrees clockwise. And then I'm going to left click. All right. So let's see what we've done so far. So I'm going to hold down shift and press the left arrow to go to frame 1. And then I'm going to press 0 to go to the camera view, and let's see what we've done so far. Interesting. So the cube is turning as it should. However, there's a problem here. We want the cube to solve itself, not scramble itself. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have to reverse these keyframes so that the cube is actually solving itself. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press A to select all the cubelets, and I'm going to go down to this timeline, and then I'm going to just click outside here and then press A to make sure everything is selected, and then I'm going to press S, and then I'm going to type -1. Okay, and now if I click and drag here, you'll see the keyframes. What happened? Let me just undo. I'm sorry about that. Something wrong happened here, guys. Okay, I'm going to press A, and once again click here, and then press A to select everything, and then I'm going to press S here, and then I'm going to type -1 and hit enter. And yeah, here we go. The frames are over here. They're selected. All I have to do now is grab them. Okay, I'm going to keep grabbing them until the first frame on the left, the first keyframe on the left is on frame 100. So I'm going to keep dragging like so. Dragging like so. Until it's placed over here. So let me repeat this again for you guys if you got confused. So I'm going to press undo, 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 undo. Okay. Yes, and now we're back to the same thing again. So as you can see, the cube is still scrambling itself. So all you have to do is press A to select everything, then go over here and click outside, and then press A to make sure everything is selected, and then press S, and then type -1 on your keyboard. And then hit enter. What's wrong with this guy? Let me undo. Let me undo. Something is a bit wrong here. So I'm gonna once again press S and type -1. And then I'm gonna just grab. Yes. So yeah, okay, let me undo again to explain to you guys. So I'll make sure that the cube is still scrambling itself. Okay. So what we're gonna do, once again, we're gonna select everything, and then you have to scroll to the very end until you see the keyframe, the final keyframe here. And then once you see this keyframe, click outside and then press A to make sure everything is selected, and then press S and type -1 and hit enter. And then you can scroll to the side here. And whether you see the keyframes or no, it doesn't matter. All you have to do is press G and then slide your mouse to the right until you see these keyframes moving, and keep moving them until the first keyframe on the left is on frame 100. Like this, and then left click. Now if we go to the camera view and press play, as you can see, the cube is solving itself. Okay? I hope this didn't confuse you. I had to undo multiple times. So as I said, you just press A to select all the cubes, and then click outside, and then press A here on the timeline to select all keyframes, and scroll to the very end until you see the final keyframe, and then you press S and type -1, and then after doing that you scroll to the very left. Even if you don't see any keyframes here, you can just press G and keep sliding your mouse to the right, and eventually you're going to see the keyframes, and keep dragging them until the first keyframe on the left is on frame 100. Okay? Very nice. So the thing that's remaining now is, let me just go to the end frame here. It's around 500 or something. Okay, let me select this. Yeah, it's on frame 470. This is the last frame, so I'm going to go to the last frame we reached. Okay, what's remaining now is we need to get this cube back on the table, make it drop gently back on the table, and then we need to make the camera zoom out and return to its original position. So let's start doing this. So I'm going to go to the solid view now and disable the X-ray, and then I'm going to press Alt-H to unhide everything, and I'm going to click outside to deselect everything, and then I'm going to go to the camera view again and select cube control over here, and then I'm gonna just skip 10 frames. I'm gonna go to frame 480, and then I'm going to press K and add a location keyframe, and then I'm gonna go to frame 510, and then I'm gonna press GZ -0.045, and then yeah, the auto keying is still on, so yeah, the keyframe has been placed automatically. And here we go. So now if I hold down Shift and press on the left arrow and then play the animation, this is what's going to happen. So the cube is going to solve itself, and then it's going to drop down. As you can see, it's dropping down. Okay, so I want to make sure that the cube control is selected, and then I'm going to place my frame here exactly between those two keyframes at frame 495, like this. And then I'm going to disable the auto keying. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the camera control, and then I'm going to press I. I'm going to press I to add a keyframe for all kinds of transform. And then I'm going to go to frame 510. And then I'm going to position the camera to the final position I want it to be. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to first press GZ -0.045. And then I'm going to scale out a little bit. I'm going to just scale out. Like this, maybe. And then I'm going to press, I'm going to double tap R and then hold down Shift. to bring the camera view down like this, maybe. Something like this should probably be sufficient. And then I'm going to left click, and now the camera is in the final position. I'm gonna press I again to add a keyframe for all kinds of transform. Okay, now I'm gonna press Shift left arrow to play our animation and see what we've done so far. So let me do that. All right, the cube is solving itself. Yeah, this is exactly what I want. Okay, so I'm gonna set the end frame to 510. All right, so that the animation ends exactly when our animation ends. So we want the video to end exactly when the animation ends. We don't want to render any unnecessary frames. Some of you may wonder why we're doing this. Some of you may want to keep the video still, some of you may want the video to still playing after the animation is over for maybe a couple of seconds. They want to make the video like this stay still. But doing this is better to be done. I mean, it's better to do this on the video editor, because if you increase the end frames to 600 like this, any extra frames will be rendered and will increase the render time. So there's a better way of doing this in the video editor of Blender instead of increasing the end frames. So yeah, if you play the animation now, say let's go to frame 180 for example, and then play. What will happen is that as soon as the animation ends, the video will end instantly. And this can be fixed easily in the video editor after the render, okay? Doing it now by increasing the end frame is not ideal, because this means your computer will have to render more frames than it should. Anyway, so now there is one last thing we need to do, which is we need to add a depth of field for the camera, okay? So I'm going to press Shift A and add in an empty plain axes, and then I'm going to scale these down like so. Then I'm going to go to the front view, and then I'm going to grab these on the Z-axis and hold down Control until they are on the top of the cube. And then I'm going to press 7 to go to the top view, and then press G, Shift Z to move it on all axes except the Z-axis. And then I'm going to place it to about right there at the point where this dashed line meets the cube. And then I'm going to press 0 to go to the camera view. And then maybe I can scale this on the Z-axis slightly down like this. And I'm going to name this empty camera focus. Now I'm going to select the camera. I'm going to select the camera itself. And then I'm going to go to the camera properties, and then I'm going to enable depth of field. And then I'm going to press 0 on the numpad to go to the camera view, and then I'm going to click on this icon and select camera focus. And now the camera will be focusing on this area over here. Now if I click on render, as you can see, this area is focused and everything else is blurred, but this is so much, we need to decrease the blur a little bit. So we can set this f-stop to maybe 15. This will fix the problem. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, to get rid of these annoying black dots in the scene, you can just go to the solid view now, and then click on the render options and disable the noise threshold in both cases, and then enable the denoise in both cases, the viewport and the render. And now we can go back to the rendered view, and we will not see these dots again. As you can see, this thing, I think this blur is good enough. It's not too strong and not too weak, and this is exactly what we want. But there is one last problem remaining here, which is the fact that this camera focus empty will remain in place even when the camera and the cube move. So if we play here, as you can see, the camera and the cube are moving and this empty is staying in place, which means we're going to be out of focus during the animation. So we need to make an animation for this empty as well. So I'm going to go to frame 1 again, and I'm going to click on cube control here, and then I'm going to position my frame in the middle between those two keyframes, and then I'm going to select camera focus, and I'm going to press K and add a location keyframe, and then I'm going to go to frame 60, and then I'm going to press GZ 0.0225, and then I'm going to hit enter and add another location keyframe. Then I'm going to select camera control, and then I'm going to position my frame right in between those two keyframes, and then I'm going to select camera focus again, and then I'm going to add another location keyframe, and then I'm going to select camera control and go to frame 90, just where this keyframe is, and then I'm going to select camera focus again and press GZ, and then just slide up while holding shift until it's about right here on the corner of the cube, and then I'm going to left click and press K and add another location keyframe. I'm going to hold down shift and press the left arrow to go back to frame 1, and let me just deselect everything. I'm going to go back to the camera view, and let's play our animation. As you can see, the camera focus is moving with our camera and cube. So let me do this again. As you can see, it's moving up and it's following our camera. There's one thing remaining after after the cube solves itself. The camera and the cube will return back to their positions, and so should this empty. This camera focus should also return to position. As you can see, it's out of position in frame 510. So, as you can see, it's out of position. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to once again go to cube control, and I'm going to scroll to the very end here, and once again I'm going to place my my frame right in the middle here, and then I'm gonna select camera focus and add a location keyframe here, and then I'm gonna select the camera control, or you know what, I'll just go to frame 510 and select camera focus and just grab this on the z-axis until it's on the corner of the cube like this, and then I'm gonna add another location keyframe, and now this empty should be exactly on the corner of the cube throughout the animation. So let's play again. As you can see, it follows the camera and it's always fixed here. This is the point of focus of our camera throughout the animation. Perfect. This is absolutely perfect. All right, let me go to frame 500 or frame 400 maybe, something like this. And let me go to the rendered view to show you how the focus is working. As you can see, even throughout the animation, our cube is the only thing in focus and what's behind is blurred. Now you may think that the stickers are kind of dull, they're not shiny, they're basically unrealistic. This is because the sample count is still very low. As this thing goes up, the cube will start to look more and more realistic, okay? So don't worry about this. It will become realistic as it goes on, and remember, this is just the render preview and not the final render. So I'm gonna go back to the solid view and go to frame 1, and let's set our render options and prepare to render this scene. Here I'm gonna make sure my render engine is cycles, and I'm gonna go to edit and preferences, and in the system tab I'm gonna make sure that I don't have any compatible GPU, because if I have a compatible GPU, I'm going to check the boxes, and then I'm going to come here and set this to GPU compute. But in my case, I don't have, so I'm going to leave it as that. And over here, in the render options, not in the viewport, in the render sampling options, I'm going to set the samples to 100, and then I'm going to scroll down and enable motion blur. And here in the color management, I'll change the look here to high contrast. I mean, this is optional, but yeah, I like to do this. It will make the colors more attractive in the scene. And then I'm going to go to the output and make sure this is 30 FPS. And I'm going to choose my destination folder for the rendered files. So I'm going to do this now. Okay. And then here we're going to choose our file format. You can choose a video file format, but this is not recommended because if something happens in the render, you're going to have to repeat the whole render again. However, if you choose an image format, if something happens in the render, you're going to just restart the render from where you stopped before the crash. So it's much better. I'm going to choose a TIFF image format, and I'm going to go for RGB and set the color depth to 8. And I think this is about it for the settings. Now, to render your animation, click on render and click on render animation. Now, if your computer is like my computer with low specs, this could take a week or more. So yeah, in the next video, I'll show you some tips to significantly reduce the render time and reduce it from a week to just a couple of hours. Anyway, so let me show you what you're gonna do after the render is complete, how you can convert this image sequence into a video. So I'm gonna press Ctrl S to save, and after your render is complete, you should find it in your destination folder that you specified. So it's gonna look something like this. You're gonna find your render here in the folder you specified, and all the frames are gonna be here. But these are images, not a video. So how can we convert this image sequence into a video? This is what I'm about to show you now. So let's save this project. And now after you finish your render, you'll just open a new Blender file and choose video editing. And over here, hover over here and press Shift A and add an image sequence and choose your, go to the area where your frames were rendered. So I'm gonna go here, say for example, I'm gonna choose this one. This is where our frames were rendered, so I'm gonna click here and press A to select everything and then add image strip. And as you can see, our image strip is over here. Now this could feel a little bit laggy, but this is only in the video editor. It's not gonna happen in the actual render. So once the video is fully rendered and complete, it's not gonna be laggy at all, so don't worry about this. Over here, I'm gonna go to the output section and change the frame rate to 30 FPS. And I'm gonna change the end here to say, you can just click and drag here to check your end frame. So you can set it as that, okay? By the way, this image sequence I loaded is not the one we just made now. It's a one I made before. So yeah, but our image sequence is going to look very similar. So you're going to look at this number and set the frame, the end frame to be exactly as this number. And then if you want your, let me show you what I mean here. So if you want your video to not end as soon as the animation is over, what you can do is you can increase the end frame a little bit. So if you want the video to be increased by like 3 seconds maybe, you can increase the end by 90, okay, because there are 330 FPS. There are 330 frames in, or you could say there are 3 seconds in 90 frames at this frame rate. So each second has 30 frames, and we're talking about 90 frames, so this means 3 seconds. So we can add 90 frames here so that we are at frame 760. So 90 frames means 3 seconds at this frame rate, because each 30 frames translates to 1 second. And after increasing the end frame, you can just click and drag here to extend this video to where you want it to be. And now the video will stay still after the animation is over. It's not going to end immediately. Let's check this out. Of course, this lag is only in the video editor because my computer is a little bit laggy, but after I render this, there will be no lag at all, okay? So as you can see, after the animation is over, the video will stay still for a while before ending. Okay, so yeah, you can do that. It's much better than increasing the number of frames in the animation itself before the render. This will just waste a lot of time in the render, okay? And now, you can choose your output destination folder again. Choose whatever you want, and here you can leave it as FFmpeg. And in the encoding, you can leave it as MP4. And for the output quality, I like to set it to lossless or perceptually lossless. And if you don't have any audio, just select no audio. And now, yeah, all our settings are fully ready. And all we have to do now is once again, click here and press on render animation. And it's going to render your video. It's going to do it pretty fast. It's, as you can see, the frames are just running very fast since, I mean, the frames are already rendered. What's Blender doing now is just combining these frames into a single video. It's not actually rendering them again, and that's why it's finishing very quickly. Okay, I'm going to just cancel this since I already have this video in my computer, so I don't have to render it again. But yeah, I mean, Blender is not going to waste time here because the frames are already rendered and Blender is just combining them into a video. Alright guys, so this is the part 3 of my Blender Rubik's Cube tutorial. I hope it was helpful for you. In the next video, I'm going to discuss tips on how to reduce the render time significantly from 1 week to just a couple of hours. Okay, so stay tuned. I mean, the tips I'm going to tell you will exponentially reduce the render time so severely. I mean, it's going to go from 1 week to just 2 hours or something. So yeah, stay tuned guys, and I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope it was useful for you. So yeah, see you guys next time. And have an excellent rest of your day. By the way, this link is going to be in the description. Goodbye. Have an excellent rest of your day.